Congratulations. Seriously, give yourself a round of applause. You woke up this morning, checked your phone within the first 4 minutes. Studies say it's actually 3. Scrolled through other people's highlight reels for about 25 minutes. Saw someone your age who just bought a house or launched a business or hit a new personal record. Felt a brief hot flash of something you told yourself was motivation but was actually anxiety. Put the phone down, picked it up again, put it down, and this is the impressive part, went about your day as if none of that happened. That takes a special kind of skill. The skill of being completely aware that something is wrong and choosing, with impressive consistency, to do absolutely nothing about it. Now, before you close this video and go back to doing that thing, stay with me for 60 seconds, because what I am about to tell you has nothing to do with hustle culture, nothing to do with waking up at 4 in the morning and cold, plunging into a barrel of ice while reciting affirmations in Latin. This is about something far simpler and far more devastating than any of that. It is about time. Specifically, how rich men think about it, and how the way you are currently thinking about it is the single most expensive mistake you are making right now, today, without even realizing it is a mistake. I am going to give you the real reason you are still broke, and it has nothing to do with your income, your background, your opportunities, or your talent. It has to do with your relationship with the most non-renewable resource that exists, and the fact that most men treat it like it is the one thing they have in infinite supply. Welcome to Prime Within. If this is your first time here, glad you stayed for the 60 seconds. If what we talk about here sounds like the kind of content that actually moves the needle for you, please subscribe right now. Hit that button. It costs you nothing, and the return is significant. Subscribe now, and let's get into the thing that is quietly costing you more than you know. Alex Hormozi built his first gym at 23 years old with his last $6,000. His father refused to lend him money for it. He slept on the gym floor for months because he could not afford rent and the business at the same time. Within 18 months, he had turned that single gym into a profitable operation. Within several years, he had built and sold a gym licensing business, launched multiple companies, and accumulated a business portfolio worth over $200 million. He is not famous because he is the smartest man in any room. He is not famous because he had better opportunities than you. He is famous because of something he figured out and then talked about with a specificity and honesty that most entrepreneurs are too insecure to match, that most men never understand about the relationship between time and wealth. Hormozi wrote about this in his book, $100 Million Offers, and has expanded on it extensively across hundreds of hours of content. And his central argument about time is one that sounds simple until you sit with it long enough to feel how radically different it is from how most people actually operate. He says that broke people think about time in hours, average people think about time in days, rich people think about time in years, and the truly wealthy think about time in decades. That single shift in the unit of time you use to evaluate your decisions changes everything. What you invest in, what you walk away from, what you are willing to endure, what you call a failure versus what you call a chapter, and ultimately, what your life looks like at 50 versus what it looks like at 35. Here is the sarcastic version of the first truth, and then the real one underneath it. The sarcastic version. You are broke because you have not found the right get-rich-quick opportunity yet. The algorithm just has not served you the right course, the right crypto signal, the right dropshipping niche, the right passive income stream that requires 4 hours of setup and generates $17,000 a month while you sleep. You are simply one click away from the thing that changes everything. Any day now, the real version. You are broke because you are making decisions with a time horizon of days or weeks, and wealth is only ever built on a time horizon of years or decades. And that mismatch between the speed at which you expect results and the speed at which compounding actually works is the gap that most men spend their entire financial lives falling into. Hormozi makes this point with a specificity that most financial content refuses to match. He says that the average person who starts a business or an investment or a skill-building program quits at the exact moment when the compound effect is about to activate. Not before it should work, right before it does. He calls this the dip before the exponential, the period in any compounding curve where progress feels linear or even negative, just before it bends sharply upward. Think about what that means practically. The man who starts investing at 25 and stops at 28 because he has not seen dramatic returns has quit 3 years before the compound curve was about to change his life. The man who starts building a skill and abandons it after 8 months because his income has not visibly increased has stopped 7 months before the market was about to recognize his competence. The man who launches a business and shuts it down at month 14 because the growth feels too slow has walked away 1 quarter before the business would have turned the corner. They did not fail because the strategy was wrong. They failed because their unit of time was wrong. They were measuring a 10-year process in 3-month intervals and declaring failure because 10-year results do not appear in 3-month windows. Let me give you a number that should change how you think about every financial decision you make from this point forward. In 1994, Jeff Bezos left a comfortable, high-paying job at a hedge fund in New York to start an online bookstore in a garage in Seattle. His boss, a man he respected and who genuinely liked him, tried to talk him out of it, told him it was too risky, told him the odds were not in his favor, offered him more money to stay. Bezos took a weekend to think about it, and the framework he used to make the decision has since become one of the most quoted pieces of decision-making advice in the business world. He called it the regret minimization framework. He imagined himself at 80 years old, looking back at this moment, and asked, which decision would I regret more, trying and failing, or never having tried at all? He chose the garage. Here is what nobody focuses on when they tell that story. Amazon did not become profitable until 2001, 7 years after Bezos quit his hedge fund job. 7 years of losses, criticism, doubt, and a stock price that fell from $113 to less than $6 during the dot-com crash. 7 years of a time horizon that would have destroyed any man who was measuring his decision in months. Bezos was not thinking in months. He was thinking in decades. And the distance between thinking in months and thinking in decades is not just a philosophical difference. It is the entire difference between the man who builds something generational and the man who gives up right before the curve bends. If you are finding value in this conversation, and I believe you are, please hit that subscribe button right now. We put out content like this every single week, and the men who stay subscribed are the men who come back to these ideas again and again until they become part of how they think. Subscribe to Prime Within now. Let's keep going. Now, let me get into something that connects the time question directly to your daily life, because Hormozi's work is most powerful when it gets specific, He talks about what he calls the hourly rate illusion. Most men measure their financial progress by their hourly or monthly income. They think, if I can just get to $100,000 a year, I'll be on the right track. If I can just get my hourly rate to $50, things will change. And while income matters, Hormozi is very clear that it matters. The hourly rate illusion is dangerous because it keeps men focused on trading time for money rather than on building things that generate money without requiring their time. Here is the specific insight that most people miss. Every man who has ever built serious wealth eventually stopped selling his time and started selling his leverage, his systems, his intellectual property, his processes, his reputation, his brand, the things that can generate income, whether he is awake or asleep, whether he is present or on the other side of the world. The man who is still broke at 40 is almost always the man who has spent 20 years getting better and better at trading his time for money and never made the transition to building the thing that pays him when he is not there. Not because he was not smart enough, not because he did not work hard enough, because nobody told him that the entire model was the problem, that working harder inside a time for money model does not produce exponential results. It produces linear ones. And linear results, over a lifetime, produce a comfortable mediocrity at best. Hormozi built his gym business to the point where he could work on it rather than in it. That distinction, working on a business versus working in a business, is one of the most important concepts in his entire body of work. The man working in the business is the man whose income stops the moment he stops showing up. The man working on the business is building something that has value independent of his daily presence. And the time it takes to make that transition, the years of grinding, of building systems, of investing in people and processes rather than just personal output, requires the exact long-term time horizon that most men do not have. Let me tell you about two men. And before I do, I want to acknowledge the sarcasm I opened this video with, because what I am about to describe is the version of reality that most men live in while genuinely believing they are doing the right things. The first man, call him Brandon, is 32 years old and excellent at his job. He is a project manager at a mid-sized company earning $85,000 a year. He works hard. He gets good reviews. He has been promoted twice in 6 years. Every year he thinks about starting something on the side. A business, a skill, something that is his. Every year something gets in the way. The timing is not right. He is too busy. The idea is not fully formed yet. He will start properly when things settle down. Brandon is living on a time horizon of weeks. Every decision he makes about his career, his money, his side project, is evaluated against what is manageable right now, this month, this quarter. The problem with a weekly time horizon is that it makes the future theoretical. It makes the compound effect theoretical. It makes the business, the investment, the skill, all of it theoretical, because none of those things produce visible results in a week. And a man who only believes in things he can see in a week never builds anything that takes longer than a week to see. The second man, call him Daniel, is also 32. He earns $68,000 a year, less than Brandon. But Daniel made a decision at 27 that most men never make. He decided to evaluate every significant decision in his life against a 10-year window rather than a monthly one. He started building a small online business in the evenings. For the first 2 years, it made almost nothing. His friends thought he was wasting his time. Some of them still do. But Daniel was not measuring it in months. He was building something on a decade timeline. By 32, Daniel's side business generates an additional $30,000 a year and requires about 8 hours of his week. By 37, if the compound continues, and there is every reason to believe it will match his salary. By 42, he will have the option to leave employment entirely, not because he was smarter than Brandon, because he was thinking on a longer clock. Here is where the time question connects to something most men in the prime within audience care about deeply, and that almost nobody is talking about in the context of wealth. The relationship between how you think about time and how attractive you are to high-quality women. I know, that seems like a leap. Stay with me. Hormozi talks about this indirectly through what he calls the long game player. He describes the most successful people he has ever met across business, relationships, health, and personal development as people who are consistently willing to do things today that will not pay off for years. And he contrasts them with the short game players, the people who are always optimizing for the immediate return, the quick win, the instant result. Now think about what these two types of men communicate to a woman with genuine options and genuine discernment. The short game player is always chasing. He is reactive, anxious, optimizing for the immediate response. He texts back immediately, not because he is generous, but because the uncertainty is intolerable. He makes financial decisions based on how they look rather than how they compound. He changes plans on impulse. He starts things without finishing them. He is living in the present tense so completely that his future is not something he is building. It is something that is happening to him. The long game player is different in a way that women feel before they can name it. He is calm not because nothing is happening, but because he trusts the process he has set in motion. He is not reactive because he has a direction that does not change based on this week's circumstances. He makes decisions that do not make immediate sense to people around him, invests money instead of spending it, builds skills instead of performing them, declines opportunities that pay well today but compromise where he is going tomorrow, and he does all of this with a quiet certainty that is one of the most magnetic qualities a man can possess. That certainty is not arrogance. It is the specific confidence of a man who has chosen a long game and is playing it well. And a woman who encounters that man feels something she often cannot articulate. She feels like she is in the presence of someone who is going somewhere, someone who has already decided what his life is going to look like and is calmly building toward it, someone whose present circumstances do not define him because his future is already being constructed in private. That quality, long game energy, is built by the habit of thinking in years rather than weeks, and it shows up in everything. The body that was built over years of consistent training, the skills that were developed over years of deliberate practice, the finances that were structured years ago and are now quietly compounding, all of it broadcasting the same signal. This man has been playing a long game, and he is nowhere near finished. Now, I want to address the specific way that short-term thinking keeps men broke, not philosophically, but mechanically, because Hormozi's work is most valuable when it moves from principle to practice. He talks about what he calls the value of boring in $100 million offers, and across his broader content, he makes the point that the most profitable businesses, the most effective investments, the most reliable wealth-building activities are almost universally the ones that are least interesting to talk about. The index fund that consistently compounds at 7% per year. The business that solves a single, unglamorous problem for a clearly defined customer. The skill that takes 3 years to become genuinely valuable and then commands premium pricing for decades. The fitness habit that looks the same every Monday morning for 20 years. None of these things make good stories at the beginning. None of them generate excitement or dopamine at the monthly check-in. They are boring in the exact way that anything genuinely effective is boring, because effectiveness is not exciting. Effectiveness is consistent, and consistency, maintained over the timeline that wealth requires, looks completely unremarkable for most of its duration. The man who can fall in love with boring, who can find genuine satisfaction in the daily, unglamorous, no-audience practice of building something real, is the man who will be wealthy, not because boring is virtuous in itself, but because the compound effect only activates for the man who stays in the process long enough for it to activate. And the man who requires excitement, novelty, and visible progress to stay motivated will always quit before the curve bends. This is the deep connection between discipline and wealth that most financial content refuses to make explicitly. Discipline is not primarily a financial tool. It is a time tool. It is the capacity to remain committed to a direction in the absence of immediate reward, to keep building the thing that does not look like anything yet, to wake up and do the work that will not matter for 3 more years, because with the certainty of a man who thinks in decades, that 3 more years is not actually a long time. I want to pause here, because we are past the midpoint of this video, and if what we are discussing is resonating, I want you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to Prime Within right now if you have not already. Hit that button. We build this kind of content every single week, and the men who stay subscribed are the ones who come back to these ideas in the moments when they need them most. Second, think about one specific area of your life right now where you have been measuring a long game process in a short game window. Because what comes next is the most practical piece of this conversation. The practical framework Hormozi uses, and that I want to give you directly, is what he calls the time value audit. It is different from the financial audit most people know. Instead of looking at where your money is going, you look at where your time is going, and you evaluate every significant block of time you spend against a single question. Is this time being spent, or is this time being invested? Spent time is time that produces a result today and nothing beyond today. Watching the game, the 3-hour scroll, the conversation that goes nowhere, the task that could have been delegated, the meeting that did not need to happen. Spent time is not inherently bad. Rest and pleasure are real and necessary. But spent time does not compound. It is gone with nothing to show for it beyond the moment. Invested time is time whose value accumulates. The hour of practice that builds the skill that will be worth 10 times as much in 3 years. The workout that builds the body that will still be performing at 60. The book that rewires a framework that affects every decision you make for the next decade. The business system you document today that runs without you in 6 months. The relationship you invest in genuinely, not transactionally, that opens a door in 4 years you cannot currently see. Hormozi is specific about the ratio. He argues that men who are building toward financial freedom should be investing at least 70% of their discretionary time, the time they actually control, and spending no more than 30%. Most men have this backwards. They spend 70% and invest 30%, and then wonder why they feel like they are working hard but not going anywhere. The audit is simple. For 1 week, track every hour of your discretionary time with brutal honesty. Not what you planned to do, what you actually did. At the end of the week, categorize each block, spent or invested. No judgment, no editing, just honesty. And then look at the number. Most men who do this for the first time are genuinely shocked by the ratio. Not because they are lazy, they are often working very hard, but because a significant portion of that hard work is spent time dressed up as productive time. Busy without building, active without accumulating, moving without compounding. There is one more dimension of this that Hormozi addresses, and it is the one that connects the money, the time, and the man in a way that I want you to carry out of this video. He talks about what he calls the identity ceiling, the invisible limit that a man places on his own growth based on the story he has about who he is. Most men have an identity that is rooted in their past, in where they came from, what they were told they were capable of, what the people around them have achieved. And that identity functions as a ceiling, not a floor, a ceiling. It does not stop you from doing better than you have done, but it stops you from going beyond what feels like you. The identity ceiling is why a man who grows up in a household where nobody earned more than $50,000 a year will feel profound psychological discomfort the first time he makes $100,000, not because he does not deserve it, but because it does not feel like him. The identity has not caught up to the achievement, and the brain, which prioritizes consistency with self-image above almost everything else, will unconsciously begin to sabotage the excess, spending it, giving it away, making decisions that bring the financial reality back in line with the psychological one. Hormozi calls the process of breaking through the identity ceiling deciding in advance. The practice of choosing, consciously and deliberately, the identity of the man you are becoming, before the evidence exists to support it, of saying inwardly and then outwardly through behavior, I am the kind of man who thinks in decades. I am the kind of man who invests before he spends. I am the kind of man whose time is building something whether or not anyone can see it yet. That decision, made and then lived imperfectly, inconsistently at first, and then with increasing conviction, is the foundation of every financial transformation Hormozi has ever witnessed. Not the strategy, not the opportunity, the identity shift that made the man capable of executing the strategy when it arrived. Let me bring this home with something real. In 2008, during the worst financial crisis in recent American history, Warren Buffett wrote an op-ed in the New York Times that became one of the most quoted pieces of financial advice ever published. While the world was in panic, markets crashing, banks failing, every expert on television predicting complete financial collapse, Buffett wrote, I've been buying American stocks. This is the time to invest. He was not being reckless. He was not being contrarian for the sake of it. He was operating on a time horizon that the panic sellers were not. He was thinking in decades, and from a decade's perspective, the crisis of 2008 was not a disaster. It was a discount. The same assets that were available at their full price in 2007 were available at a 60% reduction in 2009. The man who was thinking in weeks or months saw devastation. The man thinking in decades saw the opportunity of a generation. Buffett's net worth increased by over $37 billion in the decade following 2008. Not because the market recovered, it always recovers, but because he was buying when everyone else was selling, holding when everyone else was panicking, and thinking in a time unit that gave him access to opportunities that shorter-term thinkers literally could not see. That is the difference between how rich men think about time and how broke men think about time. It is not a difference of intelligence. It is not a difference of information. It is a difference of the clock they are running on. And here is the thing. You can change your clock. Today. Right now. Not with a dramatic gesture or a grand announcement. With one decision. One question asked before the next significant choice you make about your time or your money. The question is, does this make sense in 10 years? Not does it feel good today? Not does it impress anyone right now? Does this decision, this investment, this purchase, this use of my time, this risk, this sacrifice, make sense from 10 years out? If the answer is yes, do it even when it is uncomfortable today. If the answer is no, decline it even when it is appealing today. Run that question on every significant decision for 90 days and watch what happens to the clarity of your direction, the consistency of your habits, and the trajectory of your financial life. You are not still broke because you are not smart enough or talented enough or connected enough. You are still broke because you have been running on the wrong clock. Change the clock. And before you do anything else right now, subscribe to Prime Within. Hit that notification bell. Share this video with one man in your life who is measuring a long game in short game windows, because this conversation might be the one that resets his clock. We will be here every week, building content for the man who thinks in decades. Subscribe now. We will see you in the next one. Master yourself first. Build your legacy.